Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Tourismus Namibia. Obviously, we've had quite a busy week, as you will see later on. Welcome to our show. It's the same show each Saturday morning. And we are back again, once again, with a whole lot of topics, a few destinations. We limit our destinations this week because we've got quite a comprehensive to-the-point program today. So welcome once again. My name is Frank Steffen and I hope you enjoy the next half an hour or so with me. Before we proceed with topics of the week, let's just quickly have a quick peek at the marketplace. Topics, yes. Today we've got quite a number of topics. First of all, the most important one to me would seem is, if you look at the next picture, no pest control agents in our country and no poison available. This was announced during the week. You will see the subsequent photos. This was the photo which we showed you last week, and after that you can see it has not really changed much. We've got a real problem, not in all areas, but in a large part of our northeastern areas. And these things are migrating onwards towards the center of our country. And the agricultural minister, Kalish Lettwein, is worried because we don't have proper agents to fight this huge onslaught. So it's a bit of a problem. We'll keep you updated as we carry on. Good news on the other hand, especially for tourism as an industry, the immunization plan was announced this week, and you can see there the minister on the right-hand side, Kalumbi Shangula, and then obviously his executive director and assistant there. So they announced the big immunization plan this week. We'll see how it goes. They've spent quite a lot of time to devise which way this thing should go, who should be served first, and so on. So we'll see how this proceeds in the coming weeks, because actually the first stuff should have arrived as we speak. And then, very interesting to me, Francois Thiart, possibly not that well known to people overseas, but obviously locals will all know him. Francois Thiart is one of these self-taught snake experts who over time then obviously learned so much more and more as his interest proceeded, and is probably the best snake expert we've got right now. I suppose I'm treading on a toe or two, but he seems the most engaged one. And what he's now been doing, as you can see, Namibia to Go is part of the deal, and a few other supporters. He's actually tagged 3 zebra snakes in order to study their movements and behavior, hoping to have us all understand more about what these snakes do, because zebra snakes are obviously, especially in the center of our country, still some of the most dangerous snakes that we have, because they obviously they spit and they bite. Yeah, and then the next one up that I thought was quite interesting, just to remind you, on the 18th, that was on Thursday, we had our World Recycling Day, and here you can see in the area in Katutura, the settlement Samora Machel, they've actually put down these what they call waste igloos, and people can actually drop their waste in there. Now, the idea obviously to keep the areas nice and clean, and in the process obviously healthy. Namibia has just been able to, whether it was by pure luck or with the aid of the fight against COVID, we've been quite successful in making sure that things like hepatitis E and those things start disappearing a bit. So let's hope this is a good initiative, especially, like I said, it's all about recycling the stuff that we obviously have supported previously, and which we, as part of the organizing team of Namibia Tourism Expo, actually had as one of our main subjects about 2 years ago. Right, that's the Recycling Forum. They are obviously big into that. That's the Recycle Forum of Namibia, and they're doing it together with the Development Workshop in Namibia, DWN, and also the City of Windhoek, obviously. Right, and then just closing down on our topic subject today, the first good rains in Northwest. Now, you remember last week we actually showed you that all of us have been blessed by real good rain, but the Northwest, especially in Koukerveld and Damraland, they really had a problem. People started dishing out free food stuff. This is a photo by Bobby Griebel, obviously showing people who can't cross the river. I think they wouldn't mind. I'm quite sure that's one of their least problems right now. So, and this was in Koricas, which is obviously the sort of capital of Damraland. Streets were literally turning into rivers. So, yeah, actually quite serious stuff if you really look at that, because if your car goes into that little hole there, I'm quite sure that's where you stay for the day. Yeah, those were our topics for today, short and sweet, nothing too much, and you'll be wondering why I'm not talking about my favorite subject, the possibility of fracking up in the Kavango. That's because today we address that under our to-the-point focus idea and so on. Anyway, let's close this down. Let's quickly just have a look at the marketplace again, and next up is destinations. Welcome back. Yes, destinations. Today a bit shorter, especially because we had a bit of a hiccup. Last week we indicated something to that extent, but we weren't quite sure how it will pan out exactly. But fact is that Chloe and her family have decided to move back to South Africa. What a loss for us at the end of the day. But we were able to limit that loss in terms of Chloe will be reporting more for us. Many of you who will have read the Tourismus Namibia magazine and followed the show would have known that for the past year or so, possibly a bit longer already, we've started to refocus not only on Namibia, but also what we call 10 degrees south. And the idea is obviously that we approach Namibia just as a point of entry into Southern Africa. In fact, all the countries lying 10 degrees south, and so over time we've started now to write a bit more about the Cape. Most of you will know we've started to write about Botswana and other places. So next up will be destinations in Zambia and so on. And what will happen is Chloe will often give us feedback from these areas. So our destinations will not be limited to Namibia anymore. They will have to make a plan, but we'll also have regular feedback from her wherever she is. And so we're actually quite excited about it. And so when she was on her way down to the Cape now, I actually asked her to send us a video of wherever she was and tell us a bit about it and whether there are destinations or not. And it didn't quite work out, as you will see from the video that we'll play for you now.
Otto, what's up, babes? Otto! Otto! It's lovely. Gooch! Goochie!
Ja, dat sal die beste manier.
Wat ek nou Mariental toe kan ry en dan kan ek 'n ordentlike taai koop.
Is 'n 16 net 200
Ja, ons gaan nie weet nie.
Ja, hier is die man wat sit. Kom Jack.
Yeah, as you can see, she tried to tell us that she couldn't actually send us any videos and information because they had a major puncture and ended up driving their vehicle to Kalkrant at a very slow speed, arriving there very late, and in the process having to make use of local folk. And to put in the words of Chloe, she said she was actually very delighted because she was always made to feel very welcome when she came to Namibia. And she said, what a way to leave Namibia, to see that when you were really in need, half of Kalkrant seemed to be interested in joining them on their journey down to Mariental just to organize another tire and from the region actually. So yeah, that's from Chloe, but obviously I didn't only want to show you what a puncture looks like. So in the process, Matthias will now play in for us some video and photos that I've compiled of Hakusembe Lodge. As you can see, Hakusembe River Lodge, it's part of Gondwana Namibia collection, and this one is right up at the river, at the Okavango River. This was actually very early in the morning. I tried to get as much light as possible in, and clearly my shakes are not ideal for the camera. But obviously the sun later came up and we enjoyed some very nice rain up there. I spent a bit of time up in the northeast this week, obviously, to get an impression of what is going on up there. And so we were able to do this, and this is a video I made. Sort of gives you an idea of what Hakusembe River Lodge is, and I must say it's actually quite a special lodge. And affordable, I must say. You need to take a bit of time to get there, and I would advise you that if you drive with a normal vehicle, in other words, not a 4x4, then I would advise you to reach your destination before there's no light, because the problem is that some of the access roads are not good, and during the day you can always see little ways and means how to reach it after all without having a 4x4. But the problem is at night you clearly can't distinguish those things. So yeah, this is really a delightful lodge. I really enjoyed my stay, even though we only arrived at 8 o'clock in the evening, and in the morning early we were already broadcasting to Africa Good Morning, which is obviously another show of ours being broadcast each morning as from 7 o'clock. So, but we did it from there and actually told people, maybe you listened in, gave them a sort of first impression of our trip down there. But the staff is very friendly and the place is immaculate in terms of cleanliness, in terms of what they offer. So much delighted to be there. As you could see, we were even welcomed by this little birdie. So it's very nice to see. You've got these woodways so that in summer when the Okavango really rises, that you don't need to sort of stomp through the water there. And these are the gardens. Obviously, I mean, next to Okavango, there's water. So this was nice. And by the way, it was interesting. I actually met one of my old school colleagues up there. And so it was quite interesting that I said to him, you know, we need to clear up this misconception that the Kalahari is a desert. Number one, it is actually described as a semi-desert. And number two, some of the highest dunes of the Kalahari actually are not in the south of Namibia or in Botswana, but some of them actually, if you look at this photo and you would follow the Okavango further west, that's where you find some of the highest dunes as you go past Nkuru and into the direction of Okongo. But that's just part of it. I mean, this is still part of the Kalahari Basin, so very interesting. I thought I want to remind you of Hakusembe because I thought their rate was very reasonable. Obviously, if you're in Namibia, you still get a bit of additional discount. And I think it just proved to me once again that Namibia has now reached the point where local tourists actually don't have an excuse to go and visit those far-flung places anymore, because each and every operator is really trying to welcome you. Those are our destinations for the week. Up next, very different to the point. If things don't go that smoothly, please excuse us because we're really doing this live, and so Matthias and I will be conversing. Matthias, obviously, our mixer and designer, who's assisting me, and that's Matthias Ricardo, in case you guys have never seen his name on the credit list yet. And so we'll be taking you through the Kavango. But that's under to the point. Yes, to the point, and it will be to the point as best as we can. As all of you know, I'm Frank Steffen, editor of the Allgemeine Zeitung, but also editor of Tourismus Namibia. And as such, we drove up to Kavango, to the Kavango regions earlier in the week, and we wanted to find out ourselves what's going on. Because we've been reporting about the oil rig that the Canadian Gas and Oil Exploration Company has put up near Kabwe. This is the team that joined me there on the left. You will see Kenya Kambove. He actually reports for the Namibian Sun. And there in the middle is Richard Botha. So if you see a lot of drone footage on this presentation, that's all Richard's work. And then to the right, you've got Max Muyemburuku. He's the chairman of the Kavango East and West Regional Conservancy and Community Forestry Association, a very long name. And you can see we actually went down to Nkauta, which is really in the middle of a community forest, as you can see here. And on the way there, we actually stumbled over these logs. And who doesn't know? We wrote about it often, we reported about it. These logs are actually at Kawe. And some of you might still remember those were the logs that were traded by what was then Mr. Hu or Ho, the Chinese, who was taking these things out of the country and not particularly making a name for themselves. That was Zhu Sheng Hao of New Force Logistics. Now that has been stopped in the meantime, and I actually took these photos and so on because I wanted to be sure that there are no new fresh logs anywhere there. It's a shame to see such a huge amount of logs just lying around. Now Kawe is found about 50 kilometers southwest of Rundu, and it's also about 50 k's, shall I say, south of the Okavango River. And the reason is quite simply that Rundu lies in a little kink in the Okavango, and that's why you find that the distance is more or less equidistant. But Kante is obviously, like I said, in the community forestry area. That whole western Kavango is literally filled with little community forests, which are essentially conservancy areas because you've got elephant roaming in those areas. Anyway, so we went there, and the first stop we did is, you saw that just now that Matthias was a bit faster than I, but now we can actually show you Andreas Mawano. Andreas is the person who was actually the person who lost much of his homestead on account of ReconAfrica being allowed to set up their site just outside. So on the right you see Max there, and Andreas was talking to him at his homestead. And I was interested to know what was going on, because we keep on writing what Andreas has said and what everybody has said. So let's listen to this man. He told us himself. This is a typical homestead in Kavango, and as you can see, it has rained very well. In the background you hear the voice of Mr. Andreas, who we'll be talking to just now. On the far end there you basically see his Mahango veld. It is quite extensive, and it used to go right across that area, right across. It is quite a big area. And then funny enough, all of a sudden, without asking him, and you see them here coming, it's Mr. Max and Mr. Andreas coming into the foreground, and in the middle of the Mahango field there in the back, you suddenly see that is where ReconAfrica has started drilling their first hole. Not started, has been busy drilling their first hole for some time now, further than 1,000 meters already. So Mr. Andreas, maybe you can just quickly explain to us, were you ever asked to allow these people to enter your fields and drill holes?
Yeah, he was not consulted. They just consulted the headman for Ngaute, and he directed them here.
Okay, and so what did you say when they started putting up this place in the back here?
Yeah, he asked how did these people come here, and what will be the way forward. Are these people going to relocate this and Mr. Andreas or not? Then there were no answer.
And no response ever. And what did the headman tell you?
Yeah, headman, he only informed him that ReconAfrica is the one who have the right whether to relocate and Mr. Andreas or not.
So now you're sitting with a problem. Your field is not half as big as it used to be.
That Karangoli Makara now Dito, Muraki, Rangolenu, Lifuva Lenu, Kapili Apune, Panka Ramo Kari.
I will be Kokara now, you know, Mr.
Yeah, that is the problem. I don't have a right to do anything.
So you basically were disowned.
The Karangoli Kapivam when Kapivam Kutikira. Yeah, they are not looking at this human right, because these people, they passed it to the elders, like the governments and the traditional authorities, which means him. That is why they didn't see his rights. That is why he did not consult them.
And tell me, do you ever have contact with the people of the camp?
Since they came here, they started on the 11th of January. They only came last week. The manager now for ReconAfrica came last week here, but in his absence, because he was in Windy.
Okay. Yeah. And then it stopped again, nothing more.
Yeah, since when he come back, they never come again here. But what they were told to these people, that his wife, that ReconAfrica have seen everything that is going around the medias.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay. Let's see and speak to other people from the area as well. Thank you very much. So as you can see, I'm obviously not the born cameraman, but I was obviously trying to show you a bit of what is going on there. And I actually spoke to this Claire Priest. She's the spokesperson of ReconAfrica. That's Reconnaissance Energy Africa. They are known as ReconAfrica, obviously, and Claire actually assured me that the company and their lawyers are actually in contact with Mr. Mawano. I'm not quite sure what to make of it, for the simple reason that she's very adamant. They're speaking to the family, and the sons are convinced that there are people who are confusing Mr. Mawano by feeding him misinformation. Now, whatever it is, at the end of the day, if it's his field, I would think that they essentially need to speak to him. I don't think, he didn't seem to me a man that's not able to converse, and I'm very sure that if they took somebody along as a translator, that they could help themselves, similar to what we did. So he's obviously pointing there towards the tower there, and you could hear the sound in the background. I mean, this is with a camera. Imagine from where he's standing there over to his shed, it's no more than 50, 60 meters. And over to that tower from there where I took that photo is possibly another 150 meters. And you could clearly hear the sound all the time. So imagine being subjected to that sort of thing, that noise pollution 24/7, especially in an area which is otherwise quite, you don't hear a sound there. It's by nature pure, as you can see. Clearly no Kalahari desert, as we would possibly be told. So yeah, up next we actually went further and had a look at these things. Matthias, maybe you want to show us the next few photos. I'm quite sure This is now the Kalahari Desert as it is made out to be by ReconAfrica. We were actually told that we're not supposed to do this without the authority of the police. For what reason, I'm not quite sure. Not that I specifically thought that there was a good reason why I should listen to that. And over into that direction, this is where we came from, is the mango field of Mr. Andreas. It's from here no more than maybe 200 meters. Yeah, as you can see, I followed the footpath there going back towards his homestead. And next up, you'll actually see a couple of photos of the entrance of ReconAfrica. And it was actually quite funny. The manager or whoever was there, instead of coming out and just greeting us and possibly speaking to us, he seemed actually quite agitated because we were there. And the reason why we spent some time there, you would have seen that water in the front, and there seemed to be water coming from that site. But to be fair, one needs to be reporting the truth here, and that water actually came from beyond the site. It actually was water from the previous night's rain running down around the whole circumference of the site, and actually ending up in the road. So nothing to blame there. Certainly no water from their mud pit. But nevertheless, you will see just now when we show you drone footage of the area that this was from the back. Obviously, the other photos were from the front. Anyway, and the mud pit is still not lined. But again, Claire Priest explained to me that they are now using a new water-based system and not the chemical cocktail that's normally used for this sort of operation, and that she'll send me information convincing me that there's actually nothing wrong with the water, and that's why they don't need the liners. Liners would become porous over time, and actually seepage into the ground would be inevitable, and that's why she started. This is where we started our drone, just to give you an idea of what sort of area we're talking of. More often than not, you had people telling us, yes, but they're drilling in the Kalahari Desert. Now that almost sounds as if you're in Saudi Arabia and having a good look at what next to do there to get some more oil. This is anything but. And I need to say this up front because people invariably think we're losing in our independence in reporting about it in a one-sided fashion, if you want to say that. It's not a one-sided fashion. This is a nature conservation area. This is the area where we've got elephants. It has always been part of our pride in our country, where we've declared that this is where we are looking after our wildlife. This is where we're looking after our woodlands. And as you can see, the woodlands have been decimated there. Hopefully they'll be able to come right. Because like I said, there where the road ends further on, that's more or less where you see the logging site of the Chinese. Now this is obviously from the top. You see the mud pit there in the middle, clearly no lining. And it would, I would really be happy to get somebody to convince me that the water that's in there has no, but I mean no chemicals in that. Ms. Priest actually assured me that the water out of that can be used multiple times, and so it's reusable. And at the end of the day, whatever comes out of it is suitable to actually produce some form of fertilizer. There on the top on the left, there you see the homestead of Andreas Mawano. So the photos that I took were actually taken, if you look at this photo, I stood on one of these there on the left-hand side. It's sort of sand walls there. So the entrance is on the right-hand side there. Like I said, there's nothing unclean about the site, but we just know that ReconAfrica has time and again said that they would end up doing fracking. That was on their presentation time and again. But now Ms. Priest actually said to me over the telephone that she'll send me more up-to-date information, and that information is that they will not do fracking. Yet when I actually said to her, but can you actually confirm that you will categorically not do fracking. She said, no, I cannot. But what I'll say is that we will do no unconventional production from there. Now, and you know, it becomes a matter of semantics now. What is right? What is this and what is that? I think 80% of the concern that people have in this country is fracking. Because if you look at photos, and anybody who's interested should simply do open Google and just say fracking in Texas or fracking in Colorado in the United States, and then just look at the pictures they present there. It's mind-boggling what's going on there. America is really big into fracking, and it's given them oil independence. But the problem is really that we cannot afford that like they do. By the way, up there on the top, you could see this one here. This is the Omuramba Omataku, which is partly used for agricultural purposes. It clearly shows how wide it is. It's comparable to the Nosop River closer to Windhoek. And from here over there, you see the drilling site. So this drilling site is not far away from our water resources. And we spoke about it on this program so often, that the water resources of the Kavango is one huge basin being called the Kavango Ipukiro Basin. And I actually spoke to somebody else earlier in this week again, and they said once more, you cannot simply say I'm drilling here and it has no impact. It was mind-boggling to see how many people we spoke to out there who were simply unsure. And once again, Ms. Priest assured me that they've done everything by the books. But where she couldn't convince me yet was that doing everything by the book does not necessarily imply that people understood what they were doing. And so we, for example, spoke to people at Nkauta. We had quite a number of places there. I actually wrote about it in the Allgemeine Zeitung. I'll just quickly call up those sites just so that you know. Yeah, obviously now I can't find it that fast. It's fine. It's Makandia, it was Shakambu, and all types of places. We went to various places there. And yeah, it was Nkauta, it was Makandia, it was Kawe, Shakambu, Mbambi, where the new site is. So everywhere we went, we spoke to the people. And invariably, these people are actually keen to know what's going on. But they're not being fed information enough. And by the way, you see that I actually keep these. I haven't made photos there because many of these people insisted that we do not mention their names, because one of the big things that you find time and again is that they're afraid the government will take away development because they turn away this development. And so clearly we went further to Mbambi. This is Mbambi is more or less 12 kilometers as the crow flies from Kawe, further to the north. And here you could see there was a huge sandpit. Now, sandpit mining is firstly illegal. I couldn't get anybody there who could actually tell me, do they have a permit or not? But even if they had a permit, this was right next where I'm standing. I'm standing on a soccer field and taking the photo into the sandpit. Now, we've had a couple of children that were lost in these sort of things over the past months, and because they're not secured. Now, this is the new pit, mud pit at Mbambi. We went on to Mbambi, which is just quite close to the sandpit. And here, I felt that somebody is trying to pull wool over our eyes, because here you can see the new mud pits and they clearly have a lining, don't they? But if you go closer, you will actually see that they do not have a proper lining. It's just a lining put up on the top, which at Kawe you don't have. So if somebody now told me, no, but this is just a different pit, then I'm wondering why this pit is different to Kawe if these guys use the same technology. And I'm actually putting it out there. I was wondering when I looked at this, whether somebody was trying to pull wool over our eyes in terms of putting the plastic lining up on the top, so that once it's filled with water, you wouldn't be able to see that the plastic lining is really just on the circumference of the mud pit. But that's my opinion. I don't want to say it's gospel truth, but I must say this is the sort of thing that puts ReconAfrica on its hind feet time and again. Claire Priest is really fighting a fight, trying to convince everybody that ReconAfrica is nothing to worry about. But if you see, if you look at this, I mean, these were photos which I later on took at the bottom again. It makes you wonder, I mean, why the plastic in the first place then? Was it really just to pretend that there was lining in the future pit? And again, I hear when she says it's water that's 100%, apparently the water that they take out of these pits and have sent to NAM Water have been found to be, that water has been found to be 100% sound. Then why not send us those proofs? Why not send us those results? Why not talk to the press, talk to the communities, convince them. Go there and take out water, cook it and use it to drink. So show me that you mean what you say. So while I really try to understand that ReconAfrica is a company that explores for oil and that you need those people too, I cannot see how you need to do that in an environment such as this unless they come up with convincing arguments. And it's not about just sending me information, it's about making that information available to people at Nkauti. Because at Nkauti, when we spoke to those people, they were actually very adamant that there were only 50 people that are employed. And of those 47 are only employed for 14 days. The only ones that are permanently employed is the son of the headman, Headman Kangoro. And just wait with that photo yet, Matthias. So it is Headman Kangoro. His son is employed permanently, and two of his other, one is a nephew and another one is related to him. So when I spoke to Ms. Priest about that, she actually told me that they tried to get as many people involved as possible from all around the area. And that obviously creates a bit of a problem. She wasn't 100% sure how the whole system works. Some of the people, our people told us, come from further afield, not necessarily from Kavango. And it would seem a plausible explanation when I spoke to Ms. Priest that there is the possibility that UNAM students and people that are working from NAMCOR are brought in, and they might not necessarily be from Kavango. So I don't want to explore that angle too much, especially as this is obviously still exploration and not production as such. But many of the people said the interesting part was they were warned that if they speak out about what goes on there, they would immediately lose their job. And so I don't really know what to do to make of that, especially because most of them are basically employed as cleaners, cooks and stuff like that. But once again, people at Nkauti have had not a single person employed there yet. Okay, but we obviously also spoke, like I said earlier, to people at Shakambu. They didn't know of this project whatsoever. They heard of it by grapevine. They were never consulted, they were never spoken to. So whatever they heard so far has really just been mixed messages, some people saying it's good, some saying it's bad. So they were really non-committed, but you could see they were unsure about this whole thing because they didn't understand what's happening. And the big thing is that I found time and again is that people didn't understand the difference between conventional and unconventional drilling and or production. And so clearly if they don't know that difference, how do they take that decision? The one person that did, and now we can come up with that photo, Matthias, is this was Hubert Hausiko and his dad, Damien Hausiko. His dad is the headman of a place called Makandia. They were prepared to be photographed. They didn't have a problem with it. And they actually explained to us what they knew. But the interesting part of it was that explanation was based on information that was given to them in February only. They took note of what happened, would happen, at the site in May last year, but that was simply during an exercise where ReconAfrica was apparently dishing out free food to assist in the COVID time and crisis. So they said there was no real discussion of what was going to happen there. But have a listen. He actually explained quite. You could see on the video I took that he at least had an idea what he's talking of.
Vavo kwa obomus vinona kufatura vinombe ngoli wakava pulire ngoli makwina avo ngoli wakafatura si rudi munkeroli kwina walero munaki ya mboro litako ngoli kuno makorambi warenge sawe ngatu ngovyo ngatu vilimburura kunyima ndi kumeho kumeho kapisu wena makorambi wakutupurasi senesi uye vao kuna kuamba kunya kuna kutantambudi sinesi wapa mkunda tawafatulira na vancheya vantu wa mkunda ya wakenena mbudi dawatika kanali kwina twalifatulira ku vantu asili kwina lorudi mkeo tokinda tukamborore walembe tupungoli wao bana yere tupasi senesi wale tukutuamba ate kwata ukenu watu nakara ko nao wao kapwa nakara na udito kurenga swale
because if anything goes wrong in this village the people here can also be held accountable. Say that no, but you agreed, you were happy, you understood what was going on. Why? You understand? That's what we want to find out. You understand or not? That's it.
And do you agree?
You agree, yes.
Asuwale mongoli vatfatuire ngoli ngoli sino likwina mke nivuruke mezi vatfatuire likwina lya ole wen vasili vale likwina lya mona kuliruwana ne kufana wen vatfatulire makurambi wana kupura ngoli senesi vatfatuire likwina lya one kufana wen rupe mkero wana kwenda vakamborore omongo twavitamburako tu twavitamburako wene sine vamborore vatfaturukira si vamborore kwato uditonga ukayita ndi kapiwa tufaturukira nawa mara gavi kakara senesi nkumeho ko wale ngavi kaite udito wale mumkunda wale mema nakajona ukandi inche natenga wa mkunda wale ngvaranga kayenka simpe kwa mkunda nga wale senenga tukasivana baba katulimbura si mara mapulire mara mafatururo ndi wale wamfatuire ko company mara anembe mwa vitambwire
ya wale oyo kubra tu yuve mara tene veneni ke kumborora ndi idinje inike.
Yeah, I can actually play the whole video now, but that would take 8 minutes, and most of it, well, as you can see, most of that you won't understand. The bottom line is Hubert was actually able to explain to us exactly about the drilling process, about redirecting the drill and doing some horizontal drilling and so on. But the moment that you started asking him, but do you understand how fracking works? He didn't. And he actually said to me, but I would like to know. And I think this is really the problem that you had throughout. You know, that people were adamant that they knew until you asked them a few specific questions and you quickly realized, no, they don't. They really don't. And that's why I asked Ms. Priest directly, can you categorically say there will be no fracking? And she says, no, she can't say that. So I don't really know how the system works in the drilling fraternity. Is it possibly that they're afraid that they make that statement today and in 20 years' time there's suddenly new technology that allows for it? Then why not present it then? If they do not intend on to do fracking, then it should be easy. Because all that's important for Namibians is that Namibia does not start looking like a cheese. And that it does in Texas, in Colorado. So I think there's another photo that we've got coming up there, if I'm right. This was actually a chief lady. I don't want to call out her name right now. And she was at Mbambi, and she told us to come over and talk to them. They would be glad to meet us. And there was quite a considerable group there. And then suddenly everything turned into chaos because a local politician and the principal of the school arrived and literally started accusing the press of trying to convince people that they'd done the wrong thing here. And I explained to them, no, that's not the point. We just want to know, do you understand what's going on and what the implications are? Do you understand what conventional, unconventional is? Do you understand what fracking is? And clearly the next moment the bomb went off, because they didn't. And she was trying to shut them down, whereas some of them did not want to shut up. And the basic thing was, it was a conversation that was just held in the Kavango language, so I couldn't follow. And the more I insisted that they explain to us what the problem is, the less they did. Now, just on another note, the next photo up is, if I remember correctly, this, Matthias, you can maybe leave it on a bit longer. This was a site where I stopped and asked what the drilling operation is all about. And one of the people who was working there actually told me they've drilled the water borehole for Kawe down to 108 meters. And they are finishing 3 more, which will be for the used by the community. So they were not all at one place, obviously, but like we saw them later on, all interspersed, going right up as you go to Chakambu. And he explained to me that the water is obviously a service given to the local community, and that ReconAfrica makes use of the one that is at their site. But what sort of struck me was he told me then that at Mbambi they actually had bored down a hole to the depth of 260 meters. And when I asked him why, he said, no, the people explained to us they need so much more money. Not money, water. So we're back to that old argument. Where does the water come from at the end of the day, even in the drought, when we need to supply water to these drilling operations? And especially when you look at fracking, it becomes a huge water intensive exercise. Again, I'm at the water pits, where I have not seen anything yet that is water based and has absolutely no impact on the environment. So Namibia needs to understand that this thing is going on in the Kavango, but it actually affects all of us. And so if you've got an opinion, raise it. I'm not saying I'm right, by all means. Write to the papers, tell them why you think this is a good thing. Start arguing, start putting over those facts, because if you don't do it, and this is the message for me today, is the people that were failed, not so much by ReconAfrica. ReconAfrica is a company that searches for oil. They're very open about it. They've got their business plan out there, and it's what they do. They search for oil like I search for news. But in my case, when I go outside my limits, or what is allowed, I've got the media ombudsman to answer to. And at the least, I need to answer to a court if somebody can prove me being unethical or downright wrong. Now, this is the job that the government also has to play in the case of ReconAfrica. So if ReconAfrica are interested in drilling holes into Kavango, and remember, after Mbambi, there's another one at Kushe. So if they drill holes, then somebody in the government needs to keep them accountable. They need to adhere to the rules. And I'm not sure this has happened. And the reason why it has not happened is because the government has a conflict of interest. Having 10% shareholding in ReconAfrica does not allow them to apply their rules as strictly, or at least they don't see themselves enabled to enforce their rules as strictly as they would otherwise have done. There's no other way in which you can otherwise have a situation where there were supposed to have been held meetings over and over again, and then later on we hear they were just held for certain headmen and just for certain people, and only a few people attended those meetings. And it was never above board. Nobody really knew what was going on. There was no proper explanation, was giving just the assurance that nothing would go wrong and this is all fine. No experts from giving their opinions and explaining how it works. Now, the government was supposed to make sure that those sort of questions and meetings and consultations take place, and that they form part of an environmental impact study. And they did not. Why do I say so? Because these people, there are far too many that we encountered that had no proper understanding of what was happening here. Yet on the 26th of August 2020, which by the way in Namibia is a public holiday, and I don't know of a single public worker that works on the 26th of August, except for maybe customs and excise and the people attending to in hospitals and emergency situations. But definitely nobody else normally works on a public holiday in Namibia, not in this country. And yet, on that day, we found that the environmental impact assessment was approved and that they got their certificate to proceed. And so I'm saying the government, and I'm sorry to say it, but that's how I feel, the government left the people down on the ground uninformed. It was their duty to protect the electorate. It wasn't the duty of the electorate to try and find out subsequently what is going on here. So government really needs to have a big rethink about this and either inform the public and inform them properly, not tell them on a press statement they don't need to worry. Yes, I do worry because I have seen photos of Texas and Colorado and I do not need Okavango to look like that one day. So this is where I end my report today. You will still see just on the last note, there's one little photo. It was interesting to see that we got 2 of these trucks throughout the day carrying water from the Okavango down to Kawe, to the drilling site. So already the water that they have available at Kawe was clearly not enough, explaining in part why they would go down to 260 at Mbambi, but on the other hand, just proving the point that this is a very water-intensive exercise. And our water, we don't have a rain season each year where you see it as green as you see there in the background. So with that, I leave you today. It's on a sad note, but I feel very adamant that we need to face the situation, and this is why I've decided to bring it into this show. And I hope you were able to follow. I hope you start to get engaged. So until next week, when hopefully once again we'll have more positive news and more in the line of tourism. Until then, I remain. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me all this long while, and I hope you have a nice weekend. Bye.